Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are located. I'd like to welcome you to Talk with Chi, my first ever podcast. So, welcome on board and thank you for listening to our podcast. So, today's topic, we're going to be looking into gender, race, and politics. So the discussion will be surrounding around gender, race, and politics. And we're going to be looking at the impact of gender and the impact of race in politics. And for those that are wanting to get into politics, what at the roots, what are the best opportunities, options for you to get into to get into politics rather? Um, Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be the same route as somebody who's of, perhaps a Caucasian? Or is it easier being a woman or man of colour? So this topics I know is it kind of makes you think, it's thought provoking, it does make you to actually think, okay, are we all treated in the same way as somebody who's of different race? If we're going to get into jobs, do I have the same opportunity as somebody who's of a different race or of different gender to begin with? So those kind of topics and those kind of discussions we're going to be diving into. My guest speaker today is Bell Ribeiro-Addy. She's a Labour Party MP for Streatham. And Bell is a woman of colour who, she's been newly elected as a Labour Party MP. Incredibly hard-working lady. And Bell's going to be diving into some of the questions that I've got. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Bell on board. So thank you so much, Bell. Thank you for coming on to the show and taking the time out from your busy schedule. Bell, over to you.
Bell Ribeiro-Addy to make her maiden speech.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm very pleased to follow the fantastic maiden speeches of the member for Wolverhampton South West and the member for West Bromwich West, and of course the member for Aberdeen South, and congratulate him on the birth of his new baby. I'm truly humbled and grateful to the people of Streatham for electing me their Member of Parliament, my family, the hard-working members of the Streatham Labour Party who pounded the streets every day, and all of those that voted for me. I don't take this job lightly. It's such a personal honour to be able to represent the community in which I was born and raised and continue to live today. Now, you would have heard many new members over the past few weeks boast about their constituencies, and I've been to many of these great places, but Streatham is undeniably the best. Streatham also covers parts of Balham, Clapham Common, Tulse Hill, and my birthplace, Brixton Hill, and there really is no place like it for its history of activism, community, and faith. We have the longest high street in Europe, an array of independent shops represented by a fantastic Streatham bid, and we hosted the first ever supermarket in this country. One of the oldest train stations, although Southern Rail isn't much to go by now, and one of the last working windmills was actually on Brixton Hill, and of course the iconic Lambeth Town Hall. I want to say a few words about my predecessor. In 2010, I was so encouraged that a young black man who, just like me, was born and bred in Streatham would soon be our MP. They actually went out and campaigned for him. There was also a young woman I was paired with that day who reminded me, who was quite sceptical about party politics at the time, that whilst I was angry about tuition fees and the war in Iraq, that there were many party members who were just like me, and MPs who were also thinking exactly the same thing, but they were able to be members of the Labour Party, and that I could too. That evening I went home, opened up my laptop, and I joined the Labour Party, and the rest is history. So I thank my predecessor Chuka Umunna for getting me out campaigning on that day, and although he may not think much of it now, and of course for his amazing service to the people of Streatham. There is one member of this House that I must mention, our Shadow Home Secretary, the Right Honourable Member for Hackney North and Stoke Newington. Now, I would have never dreamed that I would get the opportunity to work for a living legend, a trailblazer, the first black woman to enter Parliament, and for a black woman in politics, there really could be no better mentor, but also no person to put you off wanting to get into politics more. And I see the abuse that she faces, and it has personally affected me. And actually, I see the way that some other members in this House treat her. Now, I love her, and you don't have to like her, but you will respect her.
Yeah.
I understand that we are here because of her, and many members like me, and Lord Boating, and Bernie Grant, and Keith Vaz, and I'm proud to be part of the most diverse parliament in history.
So today we have Bell Ribeiro-Addy, and she works for, she's a member of Parliament for the UK. She's at the moment based in Brixton, and she's doing a fantastic work. I've seen a lot of her work. Bell, I know you won 2021 MP of the Year, so congratulations on that. That's really, really great. And obviously you are fairly new as a member of the Parliament. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. I was elected in December 2019.
Fantastic. So that's really great honour for you to be, MP of the Year in 2021. It shows the great work that you're doing within Streatham, Balham and Brixton. So my first question is, when did you become interested in politics?
Well, I think in some ways I'd always been interested in politics, but I suppose I never always identified it as politics. When people think of interest in politics or getting involved in politics, they usually think of on a parliamentary scale, but there are so many different things in and around us, so many issues that affect policy and go on to affect politics. I think my earliest political memory must have been seeing Nelson Mandela be freed from prison, and I suppose discussions about him and that first election they held in South Africa, and the idea that black people hadn't been able to vote there for hundreds of years.
Okay, so I take it Nelson Mandela played a crucial role in your interest in politics, and obviously campaigning for things like, I've seen you campaign for equalities within our communities. The Windrush scandal is one of them, and I'm part of that as well for Home Office. So I'm campaigning as well for Home Office to inform people who have been affected by the Windrush scandal that they are entitled to compensation, which is great. So can you tell us what qualities a good leader possesses?
I think that a good leader needs to make sure that they are at all times representing the views of whoever they're representing. People talk a lot of the time about having to make tough decisions on behalf of people, and whilst I understand that to some extent, it almost sounds like an excuse a lot of the time. I think that people need to listen to those individuals that put them in positions of power, that make them leaders, because that's the only way that they are doing their jobs. Essentially, leaders, best quality of a leader is to understand that they're a servant.
Absolutely. So, we've elected people to be in power for a reason, and clearly they need to listen to the people that put them in there. To make sure that those promises have been fulfilled. Essentially, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thanks, Belle. So what actions or show of support would you say is most critical in realising representation and leadership across the government?
Well, I think it's important that we have diversity, absolutely. We should have people that reflect a wide range of society, so people of different race, faiths, genders, and sexual orientations. However, there should also be a representation of different beliefs and values.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to obviously put somebody in a position of power and say that, you know, this is a great thing for diversity, and also kind of saying at the same time that they think it's a great thing for representation, because it's not.
Mm.
There are some people that, you know, you may be a woman who is put in a very influential position, but that doesn't necessarily mean you are going to implement policies and practices that make things better for all women. So we need to think about diversity of opinion as well as diversity of person.
Oh, that's really great. Diversity of a person. I think it's important to know that obviously we live in a very diverse society in the UK. London is very diverse when you think about the makeup of London. 13% is of ethnic minority. So it's great that, you know, the government represents that. And obviously we've seen, you know, recent prime minister who's actually of Asian heritage. So that's, you know, that also opens other doors for, you know, people who want to get into politics. And it's not just about, I guess, like lip service to say, oh, we are, you know, ticking the boxes, we're doing this to cover diversity. It's also the actions that follows with that. So that's really great. Okay, so my next question is, what challenges did you face when entering into politics as a woman of colour, and how did you overcome the challenge or challenges?
I think definitely one is making people realise your capability, but also, I suppose, general advancement. People have very negative views, I think, about people of colour at times. They don't even realise that they have it. Definitely if you're black and if you're a woman. I remember I worked for Diana before I became Member of Parliament, and people used to ask, oh, is this your daughter? Is this your niece? Is this your intern? Firstly, why couldn't they just ask who I was? And also, you know, who walks around with their kid, their grown child, during the middle of a working day? I just think that people were unwilling to accept that I could also be a member of staff, even for another black person, because she was in a senior position. Of course, she must have a white man as a staffer or something like that. So I suppose it's being recognised for doing, being identified as somebody who is seriously doing the work that I'm doing. And I suppose being questioned a lot. People attempting to correct you. There's those little microaggressions that often come along with looking at your work.
Wow, very powerful. I have to say, some of the things that you've mentioned, you know, resonates with me a lot. For example, you know, as a woman and in a certain position in the civil service, there is often that perception, oh, did you get the job because, you know, you tick the boxes, or did you get it on your own merit? And yes, I got it on my own merit. I work incredibly hard. And the same goes for you. So you've worked your way up there, you worked hard. And as you've mentioned, why couldn't you just be just somebody that works there? Why does it have to be her daughter or her, I don't know, you know, somebody that is related to her? So there's always that assumption that as black women, and obviously black women, we've had it 10 times harder, let's face it, than black men. So there's that stigma, isn't it? You are black, or you're not capable of, but we are capable of, and we're more than capable of, and we can achieve, you know, as we've seen with yourself, Diane Abbott, Dawn Butler as well, so to name a few. So there is quite a few black female empowerment in the government that I look up to, certainly. So well done. And then just finally, as a politician, how would you like to be remembered?
As someone that always spoke up for their constituents and spoke their mind.
So, would you like to expand on that? So, I know you do a lot of campaigning. I've seen that with, um, as I've mentioned, with the Windrush and a lot of the things that are going on in Streatham as well. So, would you like to expand in terms of somebody who speaks up for the community? I know you've spoken up about Chris. Sorry, I forgot his last name now.
Chris Carver.
Yes, that's the one, Chris Carver. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there are various different ways in which somebody could speak up for their community. But obviously, when a serious issue arises, like the situation of Chris Carver is definitely representing my constituents' views, and obviously they're very unhappy about the way everything has been handled, about the way the family have been treated, about correspondence and keeping and people being kept, the family being kept informed specifically by the police and the IOPC. So that's really, really important as well. I think when there is a general view in your area, you need to make sure that you're putting that view forward. For example, my constituency voted second only to Gibraltar to remain in the EU. They're very much against Brexit. So regardless of my party's position, I made sure that I voted against the Brexit implementation agreement.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for taking the time out, out of your schedule. I understand you're incredibly busy. You're a busy woman, making a lot of, changes in our community. And I just want to thank you once again, Belle, for all the hard work you're doing in Streatham, Balham, Brixton. And it's not just the work that you're doing here. It does have an impact in the UK, because as they say, the change that we make from, charity begins from home, doesn't it really? So if you make a small impact at home, it's going to have a larger impact, globally. So thank you so much for all the work you're doing. Any final words you'd like to say before we close?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank our guest speaker today, Bell Ribeiro-Addy. I really want to thank her for her time, taking the time out of her schedule to discuss some of the thought-provoking issues that we have, some of the challenges that she has faced as a Labour Party MP. And I think is interesting that, often, people will think, oh, you're in politics, you must be incredibly, you're respected, people are not looking down at you. But honestly, there are issues and there are challenges that, people of women of colour are still facing in politics, which Bell has highlighted. And I think is important, and is very, very important that we discuss these issues, and we do not bury these issues, because some of these issues, I understand, they are uncomfortable issues, which often people don't want to discuss it. But for me, it's not enough to say we've invited you to the table. Yes, you've invited me to the table. Was I included in within your discussion? So we've given you the job as an MP. What are you doing to support me as a female, a woman of colour who has had to face many challenges? What are the issues that we're able to address? It's not about the lip service. It's not about ticking the boxes. It's not about getting the percentages to say we've got a number of percentages working as a female. It's not about that. It should be about representation. It should be about inclusive. It should be about being valued. How do you value your staff? What are the things you do to show them that you value those staff members? And no, it's not about giving each individual a different type of treatment. It's treating people as they are, treating them like people. And I really like this quote. I want to close with this quote from Jesse Jackson, an American civil rights movement. So, inclusion is not a matter of political correctness. It is key to growth. So inclusion is not a matter of political correctness, it is the key to its growth. And I think that really does sum it up. So how do we grow? We include people, you know, we have inclusive policies. What are those inclusive policies there for? Is it to help us to grow? Or is it just to help us to make a point? Or is it just to help us to tick those boxes? And I think it's very important um, that we absolutely stress the importance of making sure that people are valued, people feel welcome. You're not walking in the Houses of Parliament feeling that you do not belong here. You've earned that right to be there. You've worked incredibly hard, just like anyone else, and therefore you should be there. You should be included. And it's not enough to invite somebody to your party where they're invited where they're included in the dance, where they're being asked to dance. So, what are the things you are doing to make your staff members feel welcome? And I really want to thank you all for listening. Please, if you have any specific topic you want to discuss, feel free to send us a message in any of our social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, any of those platforms. We'll be able to respond back to you. My name is Chioma Odulami. I'd like to thank you for listening to Talk with Chi, and I hope you listen more next week. Next week we have a guest speaker again. We're discussing things about gender. This is gender within politics. Yes, you know, we have seen female leadership within a British government. So it's nice to actually get a viewpoint from a female, what it is like, a white female, what it is like working as a woman in politics. So I'd like to thank you once again for listening to us, and we look forward to welcoming you next week to our second topic. My name is Chioma, and I would like to thank you once again. Thanks. Bye bye.